Video 76, Article 2, Responsibility to the Profession, Area 8, both sub-competencies 8.1.1. Review the learning objectives for this video. Article 2 focuses on your responsibility to the profession, and I want you to see why this matters so much for your career. While Article 1 protects the public, Article 2 protects and strengthens the profession itself. These two articles work together because the credibility of individual health educators depends on the reputation of the profession as a whole. Every action you take reflects on all health educators, and every ethical shortcut erodes the trust that communities, employers, and policymakers place in our field. The first principle is maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct in all interactions, including social media. In today's digital environment, health educators must be mindful of how their online activity reflects on the profession. Posting unverified health claims or engaging in unprofessional discourse on social platforms can undermine public trust in health education. The second principle is honestly representing your qualifications. You must not claim credentials you have not earned or expertise you do not possess. If you are a certified health education specialist, you cannot represent yourself as a master certified health education specialist. Misrepresentation of qualifications is one of the most clear-cut ethical violations in the code, and it is also one of the easiest to verify, which means it frequently appears in exam scenarios. Third, acknowledge the contributions of others. Plagiarism and taking credit for someone else's work are serious violations applying to written materials, program designs, curriculum development, and research publications. Always cite your sources and give proper attribution when building on another professional's work. Fourth, you have a responsibility to address unethical behavior in colleagues. This is often the most uncomfortable obligation in the entire code, but silence in the face of unethical conduct makes you complicit. This means taking appropriate steps, such as speaking privately with the individual first and escalating to a supervisor or credentialing body if the behavior continues. Finally, contribute to advancing the profession through scholarship, mentorship, and active participation in professional organizations. The strength of the profession depends on each member's commitment to its growth. You are already demonstrating that commitment by investing in your own learning right now. Conflicts of interest frequently appear on the certification exam, so understanding how to recognize and manage them is essential for both test preparation and your professional practice. I want to make sure you feel really solid on this topic. A conflict of interest occurs when personal, financial, or other obligations interfere with your ability to act in the best interest of those you serve. The key word here is interfere, and even a potential interference counts and must be addressed. Financial conflicts arise when you profit from a recommendation. If a supplement company pays you a consulting fee and you recommend their product in a community workshop without disclosing that financial relationship, you have a clear conflict. The community trusts that your recommendations are based on evidence, not on personal gain. Personal relationship conflicts occur when friendships or family connections influence professional decisions. For instance, recommending a friend's consulting firm for a contract without disclosing the personal relationship creates a conflict, even if the friend's firm is genuinely qualified. Gift acceptance is another common area where even small gifts from vendors or pharmaceutical representatives can subtly shift professional judgment over time. Research consistently shows that even modest gifts create a sense of reciprocity that influences decisions. Dual role conflicts happen when you hold positions with competing loyalties. such as serving on a grant review board while your own employer has submitted a proposal for funding. The ethical approach involves four strategies. First, disclose all potential conflicts transparently to your supervisor, your organization, and any affected parties. Second, recuse yourself from decisions where your objectivity is compromised. Third, follow your organization's conflict of interest policies, and if no policy exists, advocate for one. Fourth, always prioritize participant welfare over personal or organizational interests. On the exam, correct answers almost always involve disclosure and transparency rather than simply avoiding the situation entirely. You are going to feel very confident handling these questions. One of the most difficult obligations in Article 2 is addressing unethical behavior in colleagues, and I want to walk you through this carefully because it is both challenging and incredibly important. Many health educators find this uncomfortable because they do not want to create conflict or damage a working relationship. However, the code is clear that silence in the face of unethical behavior is itself an ethical failure. You have a professional duty to act. Step 1 is to document the behavior objectively. Write down the specific behavior you observed, the date and time, the context in which it occurred, and any witnesses present. Stick to observable facts rather than interpretations. For example, note that a colleague presented data in a report without citing the original researchers, rather than labeling them a plagiarist. Factual documentation protects both you and the colleague by creating an accurate record. Step 2 is to speak privately with the colleague about your concern. In many cases, unethical behavior stems from ignorance of the code, time pressure, or oversight rather than deliberate malice. A respectful private conversation gives the colleague the opportunity to recognize the problem and correct the behavior voluntarily. Approach this conversation with the assumption that the person may not realize they crossed a line. Step 3 applies if the behavior continues or if the colleague dismisses your concern. At this point, report the issue to a supervisor, department head, or organizational ethics committee. Make sure to document that you attempted direct resolution before escalating. This shows good faith and follows the expected progression. Step 4 is reserved for serious violations that pose a direct risk to the public or to the integrity of the profession. If a colleague is fabricating research data, misrepresenting their credentials to employers or the public, or engaging in conduct that could harm participants, contact the National Commission for Health Education Credentialing, maintains formal procedures for investigating complaints against credentialed professionals. For the exam, remember this four-step progression carefully. Answers that jump directly to the most severe response, such as immediately contacting the credentialing body without following these intermediate steps, are usually incorrect. You now have a clear roadmap for handling these situations, and that knowledge will serve you well. Read the scenario stem aloud. Give students 30 seconds to consider options before advancing. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is C. Article 2 requires health educators to address unethical behavior in colleagues, but the appropriate first step is documentation followed by a private conversation. This scenario involves credential misrepresentation, which is a serious violation because it undermines trust in the entire profession and may affect the validity of grant applications. Option A skips the essential initial step of direct communication, which is the recommended first response in almost all ethical situations. Jumping straight to the credentialing body is disproportionate when the colleague has not yet been given the opportunity to explain or correct the behavior. Option B publicly humiliates the colleague at a staff meeting, which is neither productive nor ethical. Public confrontation damages relationships and does not follow the professional progression outlined in Article 2. Option D ignores the ethical obligation entirely by treating the situation as someone else's problem. Credential misrepresentation is a serious violation that undermines professional trust, and staying silent makes you complicit. The correct sequence is to document, speak privately, and then escalate through appropriate channels if the behavior is not corrected. Summarize the key takeaways.